Dr. Greeley, I turn to you first. Put today in perspective for us, because it's even tough for people to hear Howard Lutnick say Donald Trump knows what he's doing. Because I'll tell you, I spoke to investors, big and small, and CEOs, and not one of them said to me he knows what he's doing, and not one of them believed what Howard was spinning today.
When we watch markets collapse like this, when they all collapse together, usually it's because somebody has bought too much of something. So if we look at what happened in 2000, people bought, there were too many tech stocks, people spent too much money on them, right? So that story collapsed. 2008, we could broadly say it was mortgages. Right now, it's America. There's no single thing at the bottom of this where we can say, okay, well, investors made a mistake there. It is a lack of faith. It is a crisis of faith in the American machine right now, and that's terrifying.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about, because this thing that we're losing is trust as the U.S. being a global superpower. Okay, when you've got our allies like Japan and South Korea now working on a regional trade agreement with China, right? When you've got Canada and Mexico, who just a few years ago with the last Trump administration renegotiated a trade deal that now got torn up, these countries can't trust us anymore. So when Howard Lutnick says Donald Trump knows what he's doing, he's a business guy, we need to remind ourselves what Donald Trump is an extraordinarily talented politician, branding guy, marketer. He's not. He was never a great business guy. This guy never ran a successful public company. He never ran a successful big operation. He went bankrupt 6 times, and what he was most known for was shirking on contracts, not standing up to deals. And the whole point of trusted global trade is trusting, I'm going to make a big investment because I believe what you've told me. I know these policies, you will stand up to them in 5 or 10 years after I've invested billions and billions of dollars. That's the opposite of how people are feeling now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the mystery here is what all of these business world Trump supporters were thinking. Because Donald Trump telegraphed this. This was not, we're all very surprised, and I think we're surprised, they're surprised. We're surprised he actually did this, but he's been saying he was going to do this. And Steph, I think you're right. I think a lot of these companies still think that he's going to back off tomorrow. They're still sort of have not quite made peace with the fact that he's trying, as he described it, this incredibly invasive experimental operation on the, global economy.
Justin, what's your biggest takeaway today?
By jingo, stocks hate what Trump's doing. Let me hit you with a little math, Steph. You said that stocks fell 4.5%. I love it too, mate. You said stocks fell 4.5% today, but actually, even before yesterday, everyone understood tariffs were coming. So that 4.5% is how much worse they were than what we already expected. So let's say that maybe they'd already priced in 3/4 of that. That means that overall, that 4.5% is only a quarter of the total cost. The total cost then's 18%. This is stock markets telling you that they believe that the profitability of American companies is 18% lower as a result of these actions. That's $9 trillion in wealth destruction today, or about $60,000 per American household.
Brendan, I spoke to a big investor today who said one of our big problems is Donald Trump doesn't understand economics, right? This idea that if you have a trade deficit, we're getting ripped off, right? That's not the case. We're the United States of America. We're the biggest consumers. We're the ones who buy everything. And the fact that he has this misunderstanding and this idea that all of these jobs are going to come back here. We haven't heard from one CEO saying, I'm going to build a giant manufacturing plant. And by the way, if they did, it takes 3 to 5 years to build a plant. And 3 to 5 years from now, Donald Trump will not be in office. Who knows what the policies will be? You're not going to find a single corporate board that's going to sign off on a multi-billion-dollar investment when Donald Trump is so skittish about policy.
You and I have been talking about this for close to 10 years now. There is an imbalance in the global economy.
Not when I was in high school.
For 5 years now. Since Donald Trump, began campaigning in 2015, there is an imbalance in the global economy. It's possible to argue that the United States consumes too much, that we borrow too much, that other countries save too much, and that they export too much. The problem is you cannot address this by levying an import tax on Vietnam of 50% overnight. That's not how anything works.
But isn't the Vietnam one, Justin, doesn't this go back to the point of trust where the United States said to companies, stop manufacturing in China, they're our adversary, head on over to Vietnam, and then they hit you with something like this? I mean, I saw someone on TV today saying, I'm ready to have my Nike shoes get produced in the United States. There aren't any large-scale sneaker manufacturers in the United States. So those $200 Nike shoes are about to cost $450. And by the way, if that, there isn't a mechanism to build them here.
What I really love about this is everything's turned upside down, because I'm about to complain to you that this is the most interventionist government of our lifetimes. What we have is the commissars in the White House deciding which countries get to charge which prices on which goods under which conditions. They've got different tariff rates for different countries. They've got different tariff rates for different goods. This is an economist on MSNBC, complaining about the central planning that's going on right now.
That's bananas. Let's talk about the dollar.
I mean, so the thing that I'm the most worried about that happened today is that's the single biggest drop in the dollar against other currencies.
I want you to, this is super important, because this is something that people aren't necessarily paying attention to, and they need to. So walk us through this. Why does it matter?
Usually when there's a catastrophe in global markets, there are a few currencies that people like to buy. They're called safe haven currencies, because when you get scared, you want your money in a very stable place. So it's the Swiss franc and the euro, but most of all, it's the dollar. That's what people buy. They want their money deposited in an American bank. They're buying dollars. The strange thing that has been happening over the last several days, and in particular yesterday and today, is that even though other safe haven currencies are becoming more expensive, the Swiss franc, the euro, the Swedish kroner, even the Japanese yen, the dollar has become cheaper. And that's shocking. So what that means is investors no longer see the dollar as a safe haven in the way they see Switzerland and Europe and Japan as safe havens. That is an epochal change, a fundamental change. And you're starting to hear stirrings from hedge funders, people who make these big long-term bets that perhaps the United States is not the reserve currency bet that it used to be. And it's hard for me to put words that describe just how profoundly different that is from the way we've run the global economy for the last 50 years.
This administration keeps saying, listen, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said people need to cool their jets and everyone has to think long-term, long-term. First of all, we haven't heard a long-term plan from the administration, but more importantly, good or bad, we live in a country that demands short-termism. That's not how we operate anymore.
I mean, it's a smash and grab. I mean, what they're trying to do, and you heard it in what Howard Lutnick was saying, they're trying to quickly get as many concessions as they can. I think this is the most generous way you could look at it for the reason you brought up, which is that it takes many years to build factories. It can take years to reorder supply chains. So I think what they're hoping is that they're just going to get what they can get. And of course, that is, I mean, you know, maybe that'll lead to some concessions. Maybe that'll lead to some commitments by companies overseas to invest in the United States. It's possible there could be some good things here. But the thing when you talk to business people is they're worried about the uncertainty. And like you're creating this situation where it's impossible. Instead of encouraging investment, it's very hard to make an investment because you don't know what the policy is going to look like tomorrow or a week from now or a year from now.
Justin, I want to read to you something that Steve Bannon told the Wall Street Journal, that he said when it comes to negotiating with other countries, every day will be like Christmas. At the end of the day, what really excites him is talking about a deal with Canada, having Witkoff update him on Russia. And then whatever small wins he gets, they're going to act like it's a big, giant win and run a victory lap. That's all great for the show. And this goes back to what I said. Donald Trump is great at the show and the performance. But we could see businesses be forced to restructure, right? Think about any business, Justin, that's in a shopping mall, right? Where are all the products made at those stores? Overseas. And right now, they're going to be crippled. It's not just like they're going to have to change the price tags. They're going to be putting signs in the windows, 25% more expensive. Why? Tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, so Trump claims these are reciprocal tariffs. And that sort of says, he says, we're getting ripped off. So therefore, in Trump's mind, the stakes here are really high, that if he strikes a deal, he'll be able to stop us getting ripped off. The problem with that is it simply isn't true. Most of our trading partners have average tariff rates of 1% to 2%. Trump is about to move the United States to 20%. We will have tenfold higher tariff rates than any other country. Even if he strikes all the best deals in the world, he'll be only able to reduce tariff rates by 1% to 2% because that's all they currently are. He's starting a fight where there's no table stakes when you win.